In thinking about putting the day together, we felt there was a need to both speak to the work directly, to have historians and writers that have written and thought about Lubaina's work previously, but also kind of with a nod really at a different generation of practitioners, to have a conversation, an intergenerational conversation about the practice. It's 4 decades of practice, and how it has impacted upon other artists. So I'm very happy to invite Evan to present. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, thank you, Marlene, and everyone in the BAM team. It really is a privilege and an honour. And I think, I feel like me being here really speaks to kind of Lubaina's investment in kind of nurturing and supporting other people's practices, as well as, the development of her own, and kind of being in dialogue with her, for the past maybe 3 or so years has really been kind of just, crucial to the development of my work. And it is really a privilege. I was going to talk about kind of some of my earlier pieces of work, which I feel like are less visible, so kind of works on paper and collage, and then kind of skip quite a lot of my video work, which I feel like is possibly more present, and apologies if you aren't familiar with it, but I am going to skip it out and then talk lastly about kind of my more recent and ongoing project, a Score Griever Phantom. So this work here, IDIB from the Magmash series, which is kind of 2008, 2009, is a series of A4 and A3 collage works on paper. And I wasn't working with the original magazines, but photocopies. And you can, hopefully you can kind of see that it's combining magazines like ID and The Face, so kind of fashion magazines, but then also magazines such as Spare Rib. There's a bit of Spare Rib in there. And also I was working with a magazine called The Lady. So at the time, I was just kind of finishing up a degree at Winchester School of Art, and they had a really extensive magazine and journal collection. So I was spending a lot of time kind of in there. Sorry? You tore it. Yeah, exactly, literally. I was spending a lot of time going in there and kind of thinking about, my own kind of interests in kind of, on the one hand, kind of fashion and street culture, but then also beginning to kind of, develop and define my own kind of politics and my own feminisms, and thinking about, just thinking about, is it or could it be possible for these different issues and concerns to coexist on one page? And actually, how does that kind of redefine the existing narratives as well, already contained with each of these publications? Like Lubaina, I'm kind of interested in intervening in what's already happening, what's already going on. So there was about 4 works in that series, and I'm actually going to show just a short extract of a video that I made. And in this section, you do see some of the other works reappear.
Rosala, Voice of House Music, 1991. Irish women, our history, our lives. Men in Frocks, New York Drag. A Women's Liberation Magazine.
So that video is called Hybrid Vigor, which is a, so this is kind of around 2009, and it's a scientific, and hybrid vigor is a scientific term denoting the tendency for a crossbreed individual to show quality superior to those of their parents. The titles of work, the titles of work is really important to me. And yeah, you know, as I kind of move on, you know, that will kind of become more clear. And so this kind of, you know, these are kind of strategies that I continue to employ in my work, you know, the kind of the utilization of still images that become animated and become moving images, as well as kind of appropriating kind of music and sound clips, and also working with my voice. Yeah, my voice features quite heavily in a lot of my work, as does my body as well, although that's something I'm kind of starting to move beyond or past, I'm not really sure. Yeah, so this is the cover of a publication that I made at the same time called The Mag, which again is this kind of spoof of the Face magazine. Yeah, and like I said, so at this kind of period of time, like I am in a lot of my work, and I don't consider these to be self-portraits as such. It's more just the convenience of being able to utilize myself as a material. And this is, I'm going to skip to the next. This is actually a spread that was contained within the magazine. So again, I'm kind of playing with the magazine format to, you know, I guess disrupt or, you know, just kind of question what might be contained or what might be the content of such a thing. And it's, yeah, I mean, it's actually kind of the phrase, "you are looking really African today," kind of repeated. And this phrase is something that reoccurs in my work and has done, yeah, for a number of years now. And this is another work, a drawing, which is about kind of A3 in size, that was made around the same time. And yeah, in case you can't read the text, kind of on the right, it says here, trying on tribal face painting, trying out tribal face painting just for kicks. And then, yeah, on the bottom left, it says, I feel like I can finally look in the mirror and say, "You are looking so African today." Yeah, so again, this phrase that reappears. And yeah, I mean, you know, for me as well, I'm you know, it's important that there be an element of play in what I do when I'm dealing with, you know, I guess I am trying to deal with, you know, the realities of what it means to kind of be from a certain kind of place or occupy a certain kind of position, and actually how we might kind of look at it, but in a way that's, yeah, slightly playful or maybe slightly satirical. And yeah, I'm often using humour as a strategy. And actually earlier, so even earlier actually than this point, when I was still studying textile arts, again, I was kind of looking into Winchester's journal archive, and they had this really great collection of kind of knitting and embroidery magazines. And I was kind of looking through them and kind of thinking, okay, this is really lovely, but, you know, everybody in here is white, you know. And I kind of thought, well, you know, does it mean that, you know, people that look like me, do black people not knit? You know, do they not get to engage in these kinds of leisure activities? You know, so I'm creating these drawings, these collages, where I'm taking bits of the, you know, existing magazines and I'm reworking them and just trying to, yeah, disrupt or kind of challenge the visuality that's already existing, but more in a way to kind of say, actually, that why couldn't these be images that would appear on those pages? Yeah, so this was quite a, yeah, there's quite a few in this series, but I've just shown, yeah, these three. And oh yeah, and kind of around the same time, you know, I'm kind of writing bits of text, fragments of text, and I didn't really think about them as being part of a series, but now I kind of look back, I'm like, oh, this text actually really kind of relates to this series of work, so I'm just going to read it for you. Did they teach you at school about the place you were born, the history that spawned you? Did you learn about how your ancestors struggled for freedom, struggled for rights, struggled for the choice to create their own lives? Or was it Pete Bogman, William the Great, the Battle of Hastings, the bubonic plague, Henry VIII and all of his wives, or how the Spanish flu took many lives? Look, I get it, that's history that goes by the books, but what about a history that'll explain all these looks? Is it because I was the only one in class, the only one who didn't ask why these stories spoke not of me? It's where you're from that counts. It's not where you're from, it's where you're going that counts. The sense of something missing continues to mount inside of me. Iperi Sagamu, Ogun State, Yoruba tribe could have been my fate. Nearest airport, Murtala Mohammed International. No notable people born of national origin. Did they teach you at school about the place you were born, about the history that spawned you? Yeah, so kind of around, the same time I'm kind of engaging in these techniques of kind of knitting and embroidery and tapestry, and I'm aware that, kind of occupying, I guess, a kind of, more, and I'm wearing the same t-shirt, oh God, shows how long I've had this top. Wow, okay, this is nearly 10 years ago. Yeah, so, and I'm starting to kind of film myself and photograph myself engaging in these activities of kind of hand knitting and things like that in my studio. And around the same time, I find a stack of children's books featuring only black children on the street in Dalston, and I'm surprised and I wonder why I never saw books like these growing up. And I photocopy a lot of the pages, some of which you can see behind you there, and then I give the books to my young cousins, Moses and Ezekiel. And yeah, so that kind of continues, me kind of filming myself, photographing myself, kind of doing these activities and not really thinking about why it is. I just feel like it needs to be done. And yeah, I'm doing kind of all these different sorts of experiments. And actually this phrase, so this is a machine embroidery. This place is as much mine as yours is actually, is from a work by Jenny Holzer. So kind of at the same time, I'm actually looking at a lot of kind of conceptual art and really interested in, artists who are working with language like Jenny Holzer and Barbara Kruger and yeah, I guess that's something I'm always kind of doing, is I'm usually speaking to other artists in my work. Yeah, so that's that piece. And actually around the same time, or possibly even slightly before, maybe this is around 2008, I just started, so I'd been doing knitting and cross stitch and things, but I'd never actually worked with tapestry before. And this was a technique that I was introduced to, and I really enjoyed it. Strangely enough, it's a really kind of slow, really laborious activity that you tend to do on a kind of wooden frame. And so kind of in the studio, I'd been doing these kind of, quite small pieces. And then at some point I thought, okay, I want to actually take this activity and this experience out into a more kind of public domain. So I constructed a tapestry on the staircase, and this is the main staircase at Winchester, kind of going up towards the library. So, there's a lot of kind of traffic happening here. And it's really very much about, the activity, the doing, but also me inhabiting, or, me as, as a black person doing this work in that space and thinking about what these things happening together might invoke in the public, in the viewer, in the passerby. And yeah, at this point, I wasn't really thinking, okay, I'm working in performance, but there's definitely a kind of, it is a performative activity, but I wouldn't really have considered or called myself a performance artist at this moment in time. So yeah, this is another image kind of right at the beginning, or near the beginning of that process, but I think it probably took about a week to do the whole thing. Yeah, and at the same time, I was also kind of thinking about, being a black figure, but then also being a kind of masculine presenting person, kind of doing or, engaging in this supposedly feminine craft-based activity. And as well, I found there's another piece of writing that I'd done at the same time. Again, at the time, I wasn't really thinking about these sitting together, but kind of on reflection. So I'm going to read this. To my brother, real or otherwise, I feel you. I get it. I get it when I'm walking home late at night, stopped by policemen on my way home from work, 1:30 in the morning, questions, interrogations, minding my own business, but this business is not my own. I do not own the right to be here. Until my voice betrays my appearance, interest falters, I'm left in peace. To my brother, real or otherwise, I feel you. I get it. Walking behind a woman, perhaps mum to you, but not I, her pace quickens as she assumes I must be approaching. Purse is clutched aside, I cross the road to satisfy her ignorance. If only she could see beyond this facade the fact that I'm not really a man. It's her assumptions that need to change, not the way I choose to present. Her you must be, you will do racist attitudes. To my brother, real or otherwise, I feel you. I get it. The stares from another brother as he looks me up and down, looks for crowns of gold or silver, signs of how much I must be worth. These signs he will not find. To my brother, real or otherwise, I feel you. I get it. So yeah, so then kind of past this point, I then start to work a lot more with video, and I guess music as well becomes a much bigger part in my practice, plays a much bigger role in my practice. I mean, these are all kind of stills from videos. I'm not actually going to show any of these videos, but I mean, a lot of them are available to view online. And I mean, the reason why I'm kind of going to skip this part is because I feel like it's a part that's the area of my work that's possibly the most visible, and I wanted to focus on kind of areas that are not so visible. But I mean, just to kind of give you a little overview, like with like the bottom work here is a work called Oyolowo, which is a Yoruba word which means genuine, original, authentic. And then this one here is still from the gender song. And then the one up on the top left is, yes, this is 2014. Then this Nature Nurture sketch from 2013. And yeah, you know, quite often when I'm filming myself or putting myself in the frame of the work, I'm kind of engaged in quite ordinary activities like brushing my teeth or combing my afro, or you know, kind of these gestures that, you know, are not necessarily about a spectacle, but are more kind of everyday. And then, yeah, so this is a still from a video work from earlier this year, and it's called Opensong. And actually, Okun is the Yoruba word for the sea. And it's interesting, actually, yeah, how much the sea has kind of come up, because, yeah, I mean, yeah, again, I'm not actually going to show you a clip of this work, but I can send anybody a link to it if they would like to see it, because yeah, the sea is very, you know, plays a really big role in this work, and actually so does Lubaina's work. Between the two, my heart is balanced, because there is there is kind of a moment in the work where you know, one of the figures. With this video, it really is this moment, I guess, between two you know, feminine presenting people kind of sharing a moment of intimacy, of, you know, doing each other's nails, and then it kind of also kind of riffs in between these kind of images of the sea, and then there's also kind of a moment where one of the figures is tearing up these maps and they're kind of having a conversation about it. So it does, like, yeah, so it does quite yeah, it does really speak to that work. And yeah, I mean, this sense and of kind of fragments and kind of mapping is also something that I'm really interested in. This idea of moving beyond the kind of the existing frame of something and thinking about what might be beyond that, what might be beyond the center. Yeah, and actually with this work, and in the past kind of year, I've definitely tried to move away from being so central in the frame of the work myself. Like I still appear, but it might usually be my hands or something, rather than kind of my whole body or, you know, the whole figure. Oh, it doesn't work. Oh, that's a shame. Okay, well this should be a GIF, so it should actually be an image that's kind of moving between 3 or 4 different images. And so this is actually it's a still from the opening credits of my grandmother's funeral DVD. And it's quite common in Yoruba, so in you know, Nigerian and probably quite a lot of other kind of West African countries to kind of document a funeral. because of, you know, people living in other places. And so, you know, I wasn't able to attend the funeral, but, you know, my mother on her return, she gave me this this DVD, and it's you know, it's a really long, it's about kind of, I mean, there's 2 discs and each one is about 2 hours, so it's about, yeah, kind of 4 hours of footage of a week-long ceremony. And yeah, I was really kind of struck by, yeah, these opening credits where, you know, there's this image of my grandmother, and then kind of behind her, there's this disco ball that's turning. And I think what I was immediately struck by with that was the fact that, you know, the disco ball is a motif that I actually use in my work quite a lot. And in a strange way, because actually, you know, I didn't really know my grandmother that well. She would come to you know, to London like once a year to kind of see and catch up with members of the family. But, you know, it kind of created this, you know, even though she didn't choose for that to be there, you know, it was a kind of decision made by whoever edited the film. It kind of, for me, it created this kind of closeness with her that I'd never really had before. And yeah, so it's kind of led me on this journey of this kind of ongoing work now, which is kind of this series of work which I call a score, a groove, a phantom. And yeah, just to kind of backtrack, so these are kind of some stills of past works. So kind of on the top right there in 2014, maybe a bit earlier, a song called Disco Breakdown, and yeah, so I'm kind of really interested in the disco ball, in its kind of seductive qualities, in its kind of yeah, I guess what it symbolizes around kind of, you know, joy and play and kind of and movement and dance and kind of togetherness, and there's something about the, you know, the sociality of this space as well that I'm really interested in. So you know, at the moment I'm doing so this is a still from a work which is part of this series, and so this is so it's a 16mm film actually, because I've been working in 16mm recently. I've become kind of increasingly, yeah, again, I'm going a bit back on myself, because there was this period of time I was working a lot with video, but now, you know, I'm kind of really getting back into this idea of kind of the hand and crafting, and there's something about working with 16mm which brings you a little closer to the material. So this is a projection of a 16mm film, and yeah, this is a kind of snapshot. This is a moment from the ceremony, and I was really drawn to this moment because, you know, there's kind of my mother there on the left, and then on the right, you know, a relative that I can't identify, but there's just something about this moment of closeness between these two figures that I was really drawn to, and actually that's why I've kind of picked this this still to share with you. Yeah, I really like that. Let's see. Oh yeah, so I have another story. Yeah, so with this film, it's so it has no sound, but there is a narrative voice that appears, kind of, that comes in and out of focus. Some of which is within this text, Ebby Flow, which I will come back to in a moment. Yeah, so sometime around, I guess, 1998, when I was in secondary school, probably about year 7 or year 8, I was told that I had a voice like caramel. A voice like caramel. So in that moment, taking that remark at face value, I didn't ask my teacher, who was white and female, what she meant by the statement. But despite this, these words they've stayed with me. You have a voice like caramel. Looking back, I can't help but wonder what she meant. So caramel is a substance which comes in varying degrees of brown. It's made by heating up sugars to a temperature of around 170 degrees Celsius. It's a sweet and sensual food that can be served soft and viscous or hard and brittle. It's an adaptable food. It can be served on and with various things like ice cream, chocolate or creme brulee. It should be enjoyed in small doses as a treat. Too much of it can be bad for you. Your voice is a sweet and sensual object. Caramel, subject to multiple interpretations and states, is flexible in form. What does caramel sound like, and what qualities does my voice share with it? Might it be that the sound resonates on the ears like caramel melts on your tongue? Was she referring to its sticky, glutinous nature, or how on heating it up, it becomes smooth in texture and glides easily across the mouth, slippery? Caramel has its own erotic qualities. I did a Google search for a voice like caramel. It's the name of a voiceover company, Caramel Voices. It also appears in a slightly more elaborate form in the book 50 Shades of Grey. I have a little quote for you here. His voice is warm and husky like dark melted chocolate fudge caramel. Or something. Your voice is a sweet and sensual object. So around the same time at school, I'm sent out of class frequently. I go to an all-girls school, and with a group of friends, we occupy our times in lessons gossiping rather than studying, standard, and talking as a part of the group, yet somehow my voice, more distinctive, leads to me being called out and made an example of. Many lessons during secondary school were spent outside the headmistress's office for distracting other students. If only she would concentrate, she would surely reach her full potential. So from a young age, it's made clear to me that my voice is both a blessing and a curse. Your voice is a sweet and sensual object. And then, so this is another still from this work. She was a full body speaker. And actually, with this moment, I've constructed a kind of flag-sized textile piece, which I then project onto, which I'm projecting the ceremony onto. And in this moment in the ceremony, this is kind of a group of young people actually kind of cutting up meat ready for the meal later, and so kind of I'm in this place where I'm actually starting to work with textiles again, and so in this moment, kind of these rituals of togetherness and sociality are weaving in and out of focus against the grain of the text, which is tells a different but connected story. Okay, well, this is the last slide. Okay, so this is a tweet that I posted in 2015. Making a spectacle of oneself is a political act. The politics of spectacle and the spectacular is something that I am really interested in and have been for quite a long time, and I'm thinking, and by that I'm thinking about these kind of performative gestures that can kind of happen in public space, but also in the aesthetics of the work. So be that the kind of the rotating disco ball, a flashing light, tinsel, glitter, and in this case of I didn't actually tell you about what that is. These kind of seductive surfaces are things that I kind of intentionally use as these kind of strategies to kind of lure people into the work. And I'm interested in how that kind of either works with or against what's actually kind of contained within the work, to create a kind of perhaps, disruptive visibility. And, I'm definitely interested in this idea of kind of maybe moving towards a kind of solid or fixed representation and into a space of more, opacity, to bring up glissant. And so this work here, Ebby Flow, so this is not the work, this is actually a sample of a work that I'm going to exhibit really soon. And it is going to be a piece that kind of literally wraps around the walls of a gallery space. And I brought this in just because yeah, I hadn't really even had a chance to photograph it, but I think it really speaks to kind of some of the things I'm doing and thinking about at the moment. And I can just read something here. I mean, I guess unless you kind of get close to it, it's kind of hard because there's a lot of different bits of text weaving in and out. But there's a moment where it says, "May her soul rest in perfect peace. A disco ball starts to turn. The disco ball turns, happy viewing like a relic. A familiar motif, an attraction, reflected light feels like seduction. It transports a portal, a familiar figure becomes known, already past. There was no choice. We are family." Yeah, and then I wrote down a bunch of words, just kind of thinking about some of the things that have come up today in speaking about Lubaina's work that I feel like really kind of resonated with me. So, radical interventions, language, fluidity, restaging, the sea metaphor, borders, grids, maps, weave, play, poetics, the series, and invasion, 2 women. Thank you.
Before we move on to the next bit of the programme, I just wanted to pause and see whether anybody had any questions or comments that they wanted to make in response to Evan's presentation.
Why the disco ball? Yeah, I mean, like yeah. I mean, kind of what I was saying around this idea of, the spectacle and being quite invested in it as, having the potential to be a kind of political strategy, thinking about, I guess, this sense of what I'm thinking about as like a disruptive visibility, and thinking also about the disco ball as something that kind of reflects and diffracts as well. Like I'm also kind of thinking a lot about Barad's notion of diffraction, this idea of kind of things, these possibly opposing things coming together and creating or generating a new kind of meaning through that. So yeah, it's kind of what it represents and what it kind of brings forth for me. Okay. I'm quite excited by.
Yeah, it's exciting to hear.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
This is a massive question, so I
right.
Okay. But we started the day with the question, where is identity politics
right.
in 2016?
Yeah,
and I just wondered, making this work and some of the conversations that you're engaged in, what you'd answer to that question.
Yeah. Gosh.
You can also pass and
yeah. No, I mean, I think, ultimately we all have identity and identities. I think actually we all have like multiple identities rather than a singular one. I feel like, and I wouldn't ever, I wouldn't want to say that that's all my work is doing, but at the same time I know that my work is speaking to experience and what it means to be from certain places and be going into certain places as well, and I think it's a limiting category, and yeah, I mean, I don't really spend a whole lot of time like thinking about it, because actually this, kind of as I kind of briefly mentioned towards the end, is that I'm actually quite interested in this idea of moving away from visibility in a way, kind of what it means to kind of become or make oneself opaque, or kind of create a kind of disruptive visibility. So rather than solidifying or fixing one's positions, but more kind of making them more fluid and movable and shifting. Yeah. Right. Hi, yeah.
Hi there. I mean, it seems interesting, that last point about shifting away from visibility, because if we pick up sort of Jane's point this morning, Claudia Rankin's work about the invisibility of black women is astounding. By taking yourself as subject, you use the phrase, taking myself as a material, an available material, you seem to be kind of exploring, kind of leading on from what you said, kind of polyphonous self. Yeah. And that kind of seems to be a mirror of the metaphor of the crystal ball. It's not a kind of unified whole. There's a splintered self, which constitutes a whole. So how do you reconcile that with what you've just said, which is that you're kind of becoming opaque because you're inserting yourself in the frame in every stage, in the knitting patterns, in the what constitutes family. You're disrupting notions of family. It seems to me that you're recreating family through, I don't know if they're friends or or who was with you in those images. But it just seems to me that you're playing around with definitions.
Oh yeah. I mean, and I do definitely contradict myself. But I guess this when I'm saying kind of moving towards opacity, that's really in my very most recent work. Like, the images that I'm showing you now are literally works that I'm making at the moment. And they're works that I don't appear in as a body. I appear in as a voice, and that's kind of what I mean by kind of moving towards the space of not being so visible, because there's quite, extensive period of time where I'm visible, I'm physically in the work, and now I'm kind of thinking about other ways that I can appear. And yeah, that's through, like with the imagery before, actually that's members of my family. They're not actually staged. The Opensong is a staged, but these two. Like this is my family. This is a scene from the funeral. So this is not staged. So again, it's like, I'm part of it because it's my family, but it's not me. So it's things that I'm just kind of thinking through and with, rather than something I have concrete. But actually, I'm kind of into this idea of things, moving and shifting and being kind of hard to pin down as either this or that.
Can I ask a question? Yeah. So just going back to some of the things Jane was saying when she opened for us about the ways that Lubaina's work had been framed around identity. She asked that question about whether those questions are still relevant in 2016. And I know that you've kind of answered this question twice already, but I'm coming back for a third. Okay. I'm coming back for a third try at this.
Okay. You want the answers,
I want the answer. Yeah. I'm curious to know, particularly because we're talking about this intergenerational notion of, a particular generation of artists certainly being, I'm going to use the word accused of being obsessed with identity. Right. So I'm really interested to know what a younger generation of artists now coming up and making work are thinking about. And I was at an event, was it on Thursday? Yeah, it was only on Thursday, where there was a discussion about diaspora, curating the diaspora. And there was a discussion there about, Christine was there, to what extent. You weren't there? You were there, Ingrid, yeah. Sorry, I'm just getting confused in my old age. There was a discussion about the extent to which the term diaspora is relevant in 2016, whether it's, whether it's limiting, whether it's already over-prescribed. So this is a very long question, but I'm interested to know whether you're coming at this from a different time, whether you're feeling as an artist, as a young black woman artist entering into that fray, whether you're feeling that there's already been so much prescription over it that there's.
Yeah. I mean, it is a really good question. And actually this question around diaspora and also the question around like Black Britishness came up on Sunday. I don't know if you remember at the Open School East event with Fred Moten. And I mean, I do feel like there are these words that at the moment are very kind of, that are becoming kind of over-determined in a way, like decolonization and diaspora and even, even this kind of thing around kind of Black Britishness, like what does that really mean, to kind of occupy that space? But I mean, so the question is, so what exactly is the question? Is it how do I frame myself and what I'm making? I mean, it's difficult because, I was actually born in Nigeria, so it's on my passport, so if I'm traveling, I'm reminded of that. So, I grew up in Britain, but actually, a lot of my family still lives in Nigeria. So even this kind of sense of being Black British doesn't quite, it still doesn't quite correlate for me. Like, I don't really identify with Britishness, even though I can't really fully say that I'm Nigerian because I didn't really grow up there. So there's a weird kind of, and actually even the phrase diaspora doesn't quite, it's too broad in a way. It still kind of misses a lot of stuff out. But then something I'm also quite interested in as well, because, you know, bearing in mind that actually there's a generation that are even younger than me, because I'm, you know, nearly 30 now. So in a way, no, but there is. But I just mean like there's also like kind of artists. No, but there is, you know, because there are artists that I'm speaking with who even have, you know, there's some conversations I'm having with some people I'm working with around even this question of black and what that means, and how even that is so you know, it's so loaded. And actually, you know, I don't know how useful it is to spend a lot of time kind of policing the borders of these words and these phrases. You know, I don't know how useful it is, because I feel like in a way it almost takes away from the work that really needs to be done, you know? And I see them just as words, you know? Like, I mean, if it's useful for somebody else to kind of put me in somewhere for their own benefit or for their own kind of tick boxes, and that's fine. But like for me, I'm kind of quite happy to kind of move in and out and around multiple boxes. So, yeah.
Isn't that the point Fred Moten makes, isn't it, about diaspora?
Yeah. Well, exactly. Yeah. No, because we were in conversation with him on Sunday. Yeah. He does say something like that, actually. Right.
There's a kind of implication in the conversation that we've been having just now, particularly and perhaps at the beginning, that one can't talk about identities, that it was a 90s debate, etc., etc. And I think there's you do contradict yourself, but what's wrong with that? But also that perhaps it's for every generation to negotiate in their own way, you know, but also to be aware of what went before. And the same is true of feminism, you know, because different feminisms for different generations mean different things. And so, I mean, when we started talking and saying, fair enough, it's not fair just to see Lubaina's work in terms of those contexts, well, I could totally understand that, and it is limiting. But I think one has to kind of not be too policing, as you say, because actually identities are important. I mean, my identity is important, which is, you know, kind of hybrid and mixed and all the rest of it. It's not important all the time, but as you know, at certain moments in your life, things reappear. So I think there's a kind of plea, in a sense, for a kind of loosening of these things, because, you know, while acknowledging the reasons for not only looking at that and that, you know, sort of being put in that camp, I think we all have those moments in our lives where those things suddenly jump out of us and that we thought we'd dealt with. So, you know, I understand that you're kind of wriggling around a wee bit. Yeah. But fair enough.
Yeah. It's intentional, you know, it's very much intentional. That is the strategy, to wriggle around them. Right.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.